everyone, it's Tiffany with Rock Bottom Wellness, and I was going through some old blog posts that I have written that are on my website, and I came across one that has to do with holiday food bliss, and I figured this is the perfect time to discuss this a little bit. So it was sort of inspired by an article that I'd seen. I believe it was the New York Times. It's linked in my blog post, and you can go back and check the whole article. It was super long. But I wanted to touch on it because it reminded me of when I was teaching, and I took my students to a lab where there was a food scientist who was a chemist that specialized in making food products, and he talked about how and what went into that. And I remember, this was many years ago, I remember being kind of blown away that he was on the committee or the team of scientists that created the product Yoo-Hoo, like the chocolate milk drink. I have never had it in my life. I just have seen it. I'm familiar with what it is. But all the science that went into it to make it taste good for people to want to actually, drink this product. And we all know where things like that have gone. Yoo-Hoo and Ovaltine and all that kind of stuff has been kind of a big deal. And so I was thinking about this because I'm hearing a lot of people say, which is kind of ironically part of why people are in my group program, right? Or not my group program, my 6-month program right now, because they're wanting to know how to deal with holiday eating. And there's all kinds of things around us, all extra kinds of parties and that type of thing, where there's foods or people cannot take, they just can't control it, or they don't know how to control it. And part of it is, it's kind of like it's not your fault in some way, shape, or form. But as I write in this blog article, that when you start to know better, you'll do better. And so this is why I'm trying to educate people on this kind of thing. But the foods that we and the slogans you've seen over the years, bet you can't just eat one, and the whole clean your plate mentality that we have ingrained in us from maybe it's childhood, or I don't know, just all those things. We all have heard about the food rules, and we all have things associated with different types of foods. But the biggest thing that food manufacturers do, just like with this Yoo-Hoo and this food scientist that my class met, they develop foods to make sure that people are enticed to want to keep eating them, to keep consuming them. And, the food business is not really involved or not really set up to deal with our health. And so it's about numbers and making money. It's a business, of course. But I believe personally, and I'm sure many other people would agree, that a lot of this is what's impacting the quality of our food. It's definitely affecting the quality of our foods available to us, but it also is impacting our health very negatively with the obesity rates and the autoimmune condition rates and the chronic disease conditions that people have starting at really young ages now. I believe it's attributed to these types of products, which is why I teach so much about nutrient deficiencies and getting people to eat whole foods as much as possible, and being aware. So just a couple things that are pointed out in that article that kind of blow my mind, that maybe if you look at Doritos, or if you look at Coke or things like that, those things are developed with a specific taste point. It's called the Bliss point. It's literally called the Bliss point, that it's not too sweet to where, if something is super sweet, it's kind of sickening sweet. And so people don't want to eat it. But if you back it off just a couple notches in the food manufacturing process, then you're at that bliss point, that sweet spot, so to speak, where people just can't stop. And they do that with Doritos. They do that with the different flavors of soda. Think the different versions of Dr. Pepper that have come out, the different versions of Coke that come out. I think there's an orange Coke now or something like that. I think I saw that the other day. So it's looking at those things and trying to, be smarter than the food manufacturers, don't fall for it. But, so in one way, it's really not your fault that you can't stop eating a bag of chips. It has been developed and designed with the right fat content and the right sugar content, just below the sickening sweet or the sickening, whatever flavor that would be off-putting. It's just a little bit below that so that you just can't stop. So in that respect, it's kind of not your fault that you can't put that stuff down. But now that you've watched this video and you know better, you know, you don't have to fall for it. You don't have to buy them in the first place. So that is why it's really important to try to eat whole foods as much as possible. And then at some point you kind of just don't want to, or you're not gravitating towards those foods because they don't, you start to realize that they don't make you feel good. And you can make the connection that, you know, when I eat this type of food, then I feel this way and it's not pleasant. So you start to make those connections when you're eating all those foods. A lot of the time, you don't really understand how your feeling is connected to the foods you're eating. And so it's really important to start to make that connection, focus on whole foods as much as possible. So with the holidays coming up, you know, I think starting with making your own home baked goods, especially, I think most people do that during the holidays, that helps a little bit. But staying away from the processed foods and all that going forward will be really, really beneficial to your health. Even the emotional eating part of things too. When people, you know, they sit down with a box of Pringles or a can of Pringles and they can't stop eating them, and then they get really mad at themselves and beat themselves up for eating a whole can of Pringles. So just don't start in the first place. There's that. But that takes some work, and that's what we do in my program too, and all the stuff that I do, work on people to help get rid of that need or that desire for those things. But if you keep introducing those to your system because of food bliss and the way that foods are manufactured, it's actually kind of fascinating how they do this. It's just going to keep you on that vicious cycle. So anyway, if you need help with that, read the article a little bit more, put a link in the comments, ask me questions, making a 30-minute free phone call with me if you want to talk about things a little bit further and how you can get over the hump of even wanting those foods in the first place. It can be done, I promise. I see it happen all the time. So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit. I just, you know, going into the holiday season, just, you know, focus on real foods as much as possible. If you're going places where you don't have much control, you know, maybe eat before you go, or if you can bring something that you feel comfortable eating, you know, bring a salad, bring a veggie tray, something you know that you're going to eat that is at least something good and nutritious for you, so you don't, you know, aren't eating all the things that are not good for you. So anyway, hope that helps a little bit. Again, link to the blog is going to be in the comments, and it's a really interesting article if you want to read the full one, because I think it was a New York Times. It's pretty lengthy, but it is pretty fascinating how foods are manufactured, and they're manufactured to just make us buy. They're not really worried about the health of the food. They just want us to keep buying them and keep eating them and keep buying them and keep eating them. So it's a vicious circle. Anyway, all right, have a great day. Thanks. Bye-bye.